Wow, the grip of the sword is so warm, juicy, and tight. It feels perfect in my hand. What are you saying? Thank you to our final patrons, Citizen Lancelot, Praise the Sun, Strawbones, and Aaron. Now, before we get into this breakdown/review of chapter 195 of Jujutsu Kaisen, please feel free to leave your own thoughts on the chapter in the comment section down below. Leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, make sure you hit that little notification bell so you miss out on any videos that come with the channel. Also, I do have a Patreon down below. You can support for as little as $1 a month to get things like exclusive videos, early content, and more. Now, let's hop into the review. What's up, guys? I got the pencil here, and here we are for chapter 195 of Jujutsu Kaisen, which is known as Sakurajima Colony, Part 5. And, I mean, ironically enough, a majority, well, maybe not a majority, let me double check. I don't think a majority, but at least half the chapter, well, no, not really, actually. Only the first fourth of the chapter doesn't even take place in the Sakurajima Colony, because we're in a flashback. But, enough talk. Let's get to some more talking. So we open up, and we do get to see that our mystery man from last chapter is screaming at the top of his lungs with all the agony that a man can muster. Katana! Katana! Like he's a really big Street Fighter fan. Not Street Fighter, I think it's a Mortal Kombat character. I do not play enough fighting games. But regardless, he is yelling at the top of his lungs looking for it, and he is hunting it down with all the fervor as any man could. And notably, I think this is only, like, I'll admit, when I draw something, I get more familiar with it based on things I've previously drawn in the past. So he feels like a Mario character to me, specifically Mario himself. I'm not sure why, just his design. And I don't know why, because I only can recollect drawing Mario once, but I didn't notice it after reading this chapter until I actually drew the man. And now I just can't unsee it. Like, I just picture Mario after a long day of plumbing yelling "Katana!" and just hunting it down. But we do get to see that he's confused why he can't find a katana anywhere, which does confirm, like, when I first read this, I was like, oh, he's a man of years past. Like, you could hypothetically infer it by his appearance last chapter, but especially now, the way he is saying, aren't katana the soul of Japanese boys, and he's looking for one, but he doesn't have one. This is very likely just a poor guy who got taken over by a previous sorcerer. But then again, the very interesting thing about that is, I wonder, how does the reincarnation process work for these different beings? Because we don't get to see this guy's original body in this chapter, but after seeing Ryu's original body, I mean, they had similar facial structure, but the hair was all different. And we know Sukuna reincarnated through Itadori, and they don't look exactly the same if you ask me. So, like, what's this process like? Was this guy a dude? It seems like it. He seems to have a shirt and regular pants somehow, and his name is Hakari, Daigo, player in the Culling game. So, I don't know. Especially considering what we learn about this guy later on in the chapter. How did he reincarnate? It's not like there's so many questions. But regardless of that, we do get to see the man strolling around, obviously confused on why he can't find a katana. And admittedly, this man is dedicated and determined. Like, golly, this man goes everywhere. He goes into the grass, under bridges, through towns, screaming at the top of his lungs at fairs and running from a fish man. Which I assume is it's a fish with arms, so I'm assuming it's a cursed spirit. But it's just funny seeing him just straight run and scream katana. And once again, considering what we learned about this guy, I wonder if he was just like this previously. But I don't know, he seems to have more cognitive ability than we think, despite his main words of dialogue earlier on this chapter being katana, 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 katana. I was shocked. I was actually thinking I was going to be unable to say the word after saying it for so much. But we do get to see that one way or another, he is searching for a blade. And we see that he finds the hilt of a blade in a box in this seemingly abandoned city. Notably, we don't, from the first page on to later, we don't see anybody, which does make sense. He is in the Culling game right now, but it's hilarious to see him running around an empty city. And he finds this katana hilt, and it says, first form water surface splash. once again, it is one of the perks of being within Shonen manga or Shonen Jump. You can reference other manga, which is absolutely hilarious. But once again, Daido easily solos the entire Demon Slayer verse, and so does every character in Jujutsu Kaisen, including the most lowest level of curse, because they transcend it entirely and view it as fiction. I hate to say it, I hate to tell you, add it to the list of Bleach, Dragon Ball, and whatever that one. I think the Naruto that were all referenced in the anime. Now we have Demon Slayer in the manga. So all y'all Demon Slayer fans, I hate to say it, your verse gets soloed. It's simple as that. But we do get to see that obviously this is not a real katana, and he freaks out in agony because he essentially got baited. Happens to the best of us. Then we do get to see that in another place, another time. Ironically enough, not really another time, because it both takes place on November 2nd. But in another place, we find another man declaring, hey, let's play sumo. And it is Brody known as Rokujushi Mio. And he's also a player in the culling game. Though the main difference is, though, he's a player in the culling game that seems to be there before the culling game is actually happening. Like, maybe his player in the culling game status was always a thing before he entered the barrier. So maybe that's why he's fine. But seemingly enough, Hagane is walking around a empty city, which makes sense for the culling game because most cities emptied out because of the whole barrier thing. And Kinjaku was like, hey, leave or die. And most people left. But we do get to see that Mio is just wandering around normally, demanding that he play sumo. And I don't know, I'm also intrigued about this guy's origins too, because he uses something later on in the chapter which implies he does have cursed energy, but at the same time, I don't know, is this once again after, this is post Shibuya incident because it's November 2nd, right? And Shibuya incident was October 31st, so it is likely that he's a reincarnation that just happened to be nowhere near a barrier after it happened. Like Gali G. Willikers, this man is running around challenging random people to play sumo because I guess that's all he's into. And we do get to see that no matter where he goes, no matter who he asks, everyone's saying no to him. Notably, no one's really questioning him. Like, not at all. Like, the dude's in nothing but a sumo outfit with what seems like a kappa head and very, very muscular, but no one questions him. He goes to kids and they just tell him, no, we don't do that. And then what seems to be a high school or middle school student also says, nah, I'm good. And then two girls also say no. He's very cordial about it though too. Like, a dog is growling at him and then pees on him. But other than that, like, when people say no, he just accepts it, which I guess is nice. It makes sense. But considering what he does later on in the chapter, maybe he just got tired of waiting and decided to throw someone in there, but we don't know. We do get to see that he's so alone in this world of sumo that he almost begins to give into despair. The darkness always enters his heart, and he almost becomes a vessel to... I don't know why I make everything a Kingdom Hearts reference. Like, it's inevitable at this point. It's either Kingdom Hearts or a Marvel reference. One of these two things happen, and I rarely talk about either of them. But we do get to see, and as he cries out in despair to the heavens on the fact that no one will sumo with him, he hears something. And he proceeds to break into this poor old woman's house. Like, and once again, just the whole nonchalant nature of everybody here. He doesn't even care. Like, bro straight busted through the window, left glass everywhere. And he asked, you watching sumo? And she's like, well, yeah. And then he asks, like, oh, where is it? He's like, Ryogoku in Tokyo. And we see homie, who once again, he very much looks like a kappa. And I'm not talking about someone who lies. I'm talking about, like, the mythical creature. It's mainly because I think it is the whole sumo outfit plus the bald head, except for the weird... Like, I'm not sure if that's his actual hair or if it's a hat. I'm going to assume... I don't know. But we do get to see that with him finally having a sumo goal in mind, he can start to work his way towards it. And he is... kind of right. He says Tokyo is the capital of the East, and obviously Japan is in the East. Well, it's so weird where you reference, because technically, long story short, we do get to see that he decides to try and head east and go right, which hypothetically, if I'm thinking east, right, like on a compass, east is to the right. But obviously, the right to where he is isn't the right on like proper geographical, like he doesn't have a compass. He doesn't know exactly which way east is, but he just goes from where he is to the right, which actually ends up taking him south. Like he doesn't even go west, he goes straight south. He actually goes southwest, ironically enough. But ironically enough, the like button and subscribe button are also free, so I'd greatly appreciate if you hit those. But we do get to, and like, I will admit, it is very, very interesting that these two beings that are like totally focused on one ideal happen to merge at this exact same time. Homies focused all the way on the katana, other homies focused all the way on sumo, and they both happen to appear at exactly the same time when they came from pretty much entirely different directions. Like when you see them stomping onto the set after flashing back to the modern time, I guess, we get to see that they're walking from completely opposite directions. So these two just happen to be close enough that they converge on the same time. Interesting. And we see that Kamo, obviously in the middle of a battle with Naoya, is like, who are you? Do I have to protect you? And why are you here? But we do get to see that Naoya is like, I hate to say it, but not really, because I don't care. But these two are cannon fodder, and I need to off you. And he immediately goes to take Noritoshi's head off. But, okay. Unlike before, like, the interesting thing is, I think even pre-Flowing Red Scale, Naoya wasn't actually able to like straight perception blitz Noritoshi here, but without Maki coming in and slicing off the clump of tentacles, it looks like Kamo would have actually just gotten run through, if not his head knocked off by Naoya's attack, which is good to see. It's good to see that Maki, even while she was supposedly off to be healing, does immediately step right back into the battle and was observing close enough to know that, nope, gotta step in here. And it's great to see that they are still relative base to base, which is something that was a little bit up in the air. I know Maki got like bulldozed by Mach 3. You know, sometimes I wonder, like, does Geike even care about the skill? Nah, but we do get to see that Naoya is like, oh, perfect. Welcome back. Glad you showed up. And as he begins to heal himself from the slice, because now that he's a curse, he doesn't necessarily have to worry about like human organs and stuff like that. We see that Kamo instantly realizes, yo, Maki, it hasn't even been 3 minutes. You said you needed 5, and you were literally coughing up life juice. You good? And we see that Noritoshi's main concern at this moment is making sure Maki gets out the barrier, right? Because Noritoshi, he still views himself as less valuable. And while he probably doesn't know that Choso is on the side of our main cast now, he kind of is just a discount Choso. Let's be real. So, honestly, he is quote-unquote replaceable. And he wants Maki to leave the domain because she's not replaceable. And the fact that she can even leave domains at all is crazy enough that she needs to stay alive and stay valuable for the rest of the squad. But in that case, we get to see that Maki is like, hey, Billy that sometimes, yo, you know, I'm impatient and I'm about the business, so I am not running. But Maki, to be fair, what? I get it. I do get it. Like, this is a situation you don't want to run from. And who knows? Maybe Naoya could, like, slaughter the entire barrier. And then the moment you come up with the rule that, hey, we're going to need to be able to leave barriers, Naoya could be like, I'm a chaser anyway. So I can definitely see why Maki is like still on the offensive, like no ifs, ands, or buts about it. She's like, well, if I don't win here, what's the point of running and healing? Though, to be fair, I mean, I get why Maki's still gonna stay though, right? Because you could argue, well, why didn't she just run on the barrier for 5 minutes, heal, and come back? Noritoshi would be dead by that point, and she doesn't want Noritoshi to die. So they're kind of in a catch-22 right now, where neither of them at their full capacity, and even at their full capacities, they weren't beating Naoya. So hopefully these two individuals that randomly decide to show up, both Daigo and other guy, can be useful. We see, speaking of Daigo, he just screams at the top of his lungs, suddenly in a new outfit. Like, he was wearing a t-shirt and shorts before, but now he's wearing I'm not sure if I don't think it's a kimono, but a robe, and he yells katana, and he sprints at Maki, finally seeing the katana. And we see that both Maki and Noritoshi have this same realization, like, yo, the only way we can really break out of this and give us a chance is if we take the gamble. And Maki doesn't hesitate to, like, she throws I keep calling it Mai. I know it's not actually Mai, but I always like to pretend that, yo, that's literally just, Mai's just in the sword. But we see that she throws the blade, and Daigo instantly reacts to it. Like, I'm not sure how fast Maki threw it. I doubt Maki was launching it with killer intent or anything like that. But the fact that Daigo casually snaps up a blade thrown by Enhanced Maki, who in the data book is confirmed even back at the Zenin clan raid when she was bleeding out to be as strong as Toji. That's kind of crazy how he just casually, like, snaps it up just fine. And I love it. See, like, it's so hard to take Mario Man and Daigo seriously here. But I love how the moment his hand gets on the blade, right? He doesn't even really put it into, like, a blade-wielding position. He simply catches it. And then everybody there, from Kamo to Naoya to Maki to Sumo, everybody there is like, what in the world did we just do? Like, it was like an immediate mistake. Like, y'all ever play one of the Telltale games where you hesitate on making a choice, then decide, you know what, I'm gonna make it, and you immediately regret it. That's what immediately seems to wash over everybody here. And we learned that Daido was actually a nameless reincarnated master swordsman without peer. So he's a demon, and he was also an outlaw among players who can wield a blade but not curse energy. So that, I wonder, that raises questions for me when I first read it. But let me continue reading. It wasn't cursed energy that overwhelmed the other four. It was something that had surfaced when he acquired a katana. Sheer lethality. And so he doesn't wield cursed energy. So is he heavenly restricted? Is he a previous, like, I don't want to call him a previous, and he does, I think he does have the t-shirt and shorts underneath, because I do see part of the shorts, or that may be shading. But is he also heavily restricted like Maki? Because that would hypothetically explain how he's able to run around here and keep up, and also later on what he does in the chapter, and the fact that he doesn't wield cursed energy. Like, is bro actually Toji pre-patch? Like, we know that Toji was supposedly the first human in history to be brought forth by cursed energy. Like, no, brought forth into the world without cursed energy, and Maki artificially became one with the death of Mai. But I don't know, is Daigo also just a demon like that? Because if so, amazing, impressive. And I wonder how he got brought back. Because if he doesn't, it's a question. He may not wield cursed energy, but may have it, in akin to, like, everyday people in Japan who do have cursed energy, but just don't know how to use it. Or he could be a previous heavenly restriction, which would make sense as he's essentially our Toji substitute for what Maki's arc will be within this fight. Interesting. Either way, I'm intrigued to see Daigo and see how long he sticks around. He's obviously, him and what appears to be the sumo guy are obviously going to be our Kashimo, Higaluma. Ironically enough. Once again, maybe not, because Megami just slaughtered Reggie. Every other fight that we've had so far, and to be fair, there have only been 4, but every other fight that we've had so far, from Itadori to Yuta to Kashimo, not Kashimo, Hakari, like, every single one of those fights has ended with us getting a new ally, getting a new recruit. And you could argue Higuruma wasn't. You could argue Higuruma was just like, deuces, but, you know, he can obviously come back. The same thing ended with Ryu and Ura, where they're both like, yeah, you may have spared us, but we're gonna go off and live our own lives. Obviously, Yuta can just ring him up and be like, hey, yo, Ryu, trying to throw hands, my boy? Like, obviously, he could call him back up. So it's interesting. I wonder if Daigo's gonna stick around. But then again, if he's gonna stick around, he's gonna need his own katana, right? Like, he's not just gonna keep wielding Maki, especially considering that's literally Mai in blade form. No, but I don't know. It's intriguing to see guys like this. Like, notably, every other character we've seen so far hasn't, like, this is a very unique character design for a fighter in JJK, especially as of recent. So I'm excited to see him. And I'm also excited to find out that this man just, despite his appearance, despite looking like Mario the Plumber, he's just radiating so much lethality. And I love how beautiful the art looks, where it's like, if I had to describe it, Gege drew the image and then just dropped white ink all over it, and you can see how, like, focused he is. It's almost like he did an EI slash. Like, he has his hand positioned as if he were drawing from a sheath, like he had a katana sheath, but it's just a super clean slash that splits the image in half perfectly, and you see the ink spots represent nothing, I guess. Like, because notably, I don't think he actually hits Naoya. Oh wait, no, I think he does. I think he hits Naoya. Honestly, can't tell. I think, yeah, he does hit Naoya. So that those little drops, man, so Naoya's cursed life juice. That it's different from your garden variety life juice because it's cursed. And we do get to see the like button and subscribe button are in fact free. And on top of that, Daigo is impressed with the blade. Like, he's like, yeah, baby, this is the kind of katana we're talking about. Nice, hot, tight, juicy katana. But we do get to see that he, being a blade master, unrivaled one, which is very interesting to hear. I wonder what period he was in. Notably, sword wielders and weapon wielders in general aren't the most common thing in JJK, like Maki and Toji. Like, we know Nobara uses nails, and Witch Girl uses a broom, but other than that, we never really see someone whip out a whole blade. Ironically enough, Sukuna wields blades, but not in the blade sense. So I wonder who he was fighting. Like, I wonder if that's impressive. Were there other sorcerers at the time that also wielded blades that makes him so impressive, or is he just a swordsman without peer just in general? Interesting, considering he has enough sheer lethality that he's scaring these either high tiers and or top tiers. If you want to ask me where I think Maki and Naoya are, like, he going crazy. He going crazy right now. But we do get to see that he realizes something about the blade after he swings it. All it took was one swing for him to realize, and the fact that also it is an unmarked blade with no guard, which is, it's cool that he notices that, like, little minor details that only a master swordsman would notice. We do get to see that he asks Maki, like, yo, is this a demonic sword? The katana chooses its wielder, which is interesting. Notably, the whole thing about Maki going off and healing, which is what she did last chapter, does make me wonder if the sword gives her those properties, such as like an artificial RCT via using whatever of Mai's life and cursed energies left in the blade, allowing her to heal herself, and or if it's just heavily in restriction, just amps the body in all fronts, all levels, to the point where if you leave a heavily restriction, I guess it's weird to call them a user. It's not like they chose. So like, this is my technique, heavily restriction. But if you were to leave a person with heavily restriction alone for long enough with minor enough injuries or even internal injuries, they'd be able to heal it off quickly. I'm not sure. But the fact that Daigo instantly recognizes this as a cursed blade that supposedly chooses its wielder, it's interesting. And I wonder, the whole choosing its wielder thing, it's not like, I feel like he couldn't swing. It's not like he couldn't strike Naoya. He did. It's not like the blade was just like, no, I refuse to work with you. It's not like it's super heavy in his hand, but it's interesting how he identifies it as that. And I wonder how much sentience this blade has, and if it really is just mine. I don't know. But we do get to see that Daigo, I suppose his dominion and domain over blades, right? Being a swordsman without peer from his era, he actually manages to somewhat override whatever is there. Like, say hypothetically, it is my spirit, right? Like, you kind of get a Mjolnir effect where only the hammer deems you worthy based off certain Actually, that's a thing. With Thor Love and Thunder, I'm not sure if Mjolnir is sentient. But hypothetically, there's two ways to go with this. Either Mai is somehow in the blade, literally, like her consciousness is in there, and it's able to quote-unquote fight back, which would explain why Daigo's unable to wield it completely at first, and even notices that it's unable to choose its wielder. But if you have enough power over Mai, you could hypothetically override that process. The only thing that would be in the way is her inability to let her use you properly. Like, the full potential of the blade could not be brought out just because Mai's being stubborn. And or it's just a Mjolnir thing, where like prerequisites, due to how Mai created the blade, only someone like Maki could really bring out its full potential. I don't know. It's interesting how he's able to note that only certain people are allowed to wield it because it chooses its master, but at the same time, he's able to wield it just fine, even though he's saying it chooses its master. Then we do get to see that he's mad at the Mai blade. It's like, you're trying to shame me. What are you doing? You're a katana. You're my blade. However, we see Maki calls out because Noya's like, alright, bro, slice my face. Maki-chan may have got my tentacles, but not my face. Hold on a second. Let me get this man up out of here. However, Daigo instantly reacts and manages to dodge a decent bit out of the way. Like, the blade, he drops the blade down, ducks, and then backs away to the point where Naoya misses him by a couple feet, which, considering how fast Naoya is very, very impressive. And we do get to see that Daigo keeps asking questions like, hey, yo, Maki, something's there, right? Some kind of Ayakashi, which is interesting. He doesn't call it a curse. He calls it an Ayakashi. We were never, he doesn't, yeah, that's interesting. I wonder how common the term Ayakashi, I know it's a common thing in Japan, like, I think Ayakashi, or no, that's yokai. I'm thinking of Yokai Watch. I'm thinking of other things. I've heard Ayakashi before in reference to curses, but I don't think ever in Jujutsu Kaisen, but considering how many times the word curse is used, maybe it's just override my memory. But interesting how he can qualify it as Ayakashi. And notably, Maki's like, wait a minute, you can't see it? Which, once again, makes me wonder, does he have... But then again, people can't see curses in general. So maybe he once again does have access to curse energy, he just doesn't know how to use it, which... entirely possible. Makes me worried about what happened if this guy did get access to curse energy, if he's not just heavily restricted. But we do get to see that Daigo's like, oh, can I see it? No, not really, but if I can see everything else around it, then it's the same as if I am seeing it. So, sort of like, imagine, like, at first it was hard for me to wrap my head around this, like, imagine you were standing in an empty room, and you managed to somehow, like, say you were in an empty room, but there was an invisible statue in the middle of it. Just because you could see all the other details of the empty room, could that suddenly mean you see the statue? In my mind, no. But hypothetically, what I think Daigo's talking about here is that he can feel, either he has super crazy perception, like he can see the air molecules and feel the air molecules parting as Mario goes to strike him, and thus he's able to avoid, and or he's like just barely dodging everything. Like he can almost feel it just because of how things go around him. I don't think he's actually... it's a weird way to put it. But maybe he has some sort of like heightened sensory abilities. Once again, due to possibly being heavily restricted. And we do get to see that Daigo, in his next swing, like cleaves Naoya in half. Not down the middle, which is why I'm assuming Naoya lives. But like straight, his torso, his lower half is cut clean through. To the point where Naoya's like, Nani Daiseshikano, what? And he's blown away. We do get to see that, interestingly enough, I'm guessing Daigo's talking once again to the blade here, because he asks it, yeah, why didn't you do that in the first place? Which implies that he wasn't trying to slice Naoya's face in that previous panel due to the limits of the blade. He actually ended up wanting to slice Naoya in half. Crazy thing to see that Naoya is being handled by, I know he's a swordsman without peer, but essentially a rando. And we see Maki is blown away. Like she's like, wait a minute, my attacks didn't do that. What's going on here? If I see everything else, what is it that I'm not seeing? Which does imply that maybe Daigo's talking about some other sort of perception that isn't either of the things I mentioned, interestingly enough. But we do get to see at the very end, Maki does end up questioning, what's the difference between me and that guy? And obviously, that guy, in this case, is Toji. She's wondering what the main difference between them is. And while Gege is arguing their stats may be different, I have a hypothetical theory on what is different. However, before we get into that, we do get to see that Sumo Man decides to sumo. And he essentially locks Maki in what she notices is a simple domain. But what I do think this is, I think this guy is the original wielder of the, not simple domain without rules. Or no, domain without a sure hit. Because remember, I believe it was Kenjaku who mentioned, oh yeah, back in the day, domains were not crazy, super insane, slaughter everything in one sure hit. Like that wasn't their MO. All they did was place rules over a certain area. So, and remember, what we were shown as a hypothetical model for that was two guys in a sumo ring. So hypothetically, this guy could be reincarnated from the original maker of the domain, or maybe not the original domain users, but at least that example guy. And he has rules that are followed within that are probably very likely based on sumo. And hypothetically, with Maki being involved in here, she could better understand the differences between, like, there's layers to this, and I'll talk about that in a separate video. However, for the main difference, which I'll also make a separate video on, I'm sorry, I'm thinking of so many things I can talk about with Maki, but for the whole Toji thing, she asked what's the difference between him and her, and I have to think the main difference is experience with complete heavenly restriction. Hypothetically, if you were to ask me the main thing that Maki's experiencing right now, it's whiplash. Imagine if I were to suddenly swap you, brain-wise and like mind-wise, with the body of the strongest man on the planet. or even the fastest man on the planet. Or say we combine both of them together and just swap the bodies like that. If I were to level you up from whatever you are, who knows, maybe the strongest man and the fastest man on the planet are currently watching this, but if I were to hypothetically swap you, the individual, with that, would you be able to 100% use your max potential? Would you completely understand everything new about your body, what your upper limits are, how you could do it? No, at least I don't think so. If I were to suddenly get that brain swap treatment, I don't think I would fully know my limits. I'd have to test those. I'd have to keep using them. And the thing is, even if my limits are something that are within my comprehension, something that I may experience with things like durability tanking and stuff like that, which is what Maki did go through. She did run through the entire Zenin clan, was taking a whole bunch of hits, so she may have experienced the hypothetical limits of her durability, but what she doesn't know is her top strength, her top speed, what she can do in terms of mobility and stuff like that. The difference between Maki and Toji is that Maki is freshly fully heavenly restricted. She has not had much experience with the absolute limit of her powers. Meanwhile, Toji has spent his entire life growing with his powers, growing with his limits, put in a place where he has no idea and no other option but to use his limits to survive. So I'm thinking the main thing that Maki is going to need to learn here from this battle is using every bit of herself to the ultimate degree. And that could explain why her attacks sort of have this limit to them. If anything, I would compare the situation to the Megami situation, which makes sense. They're both Zenin, where it's slightly different. It's weird enough because it's slightly different. Megami wasn't swinging full circle just because of his mentality. He was just like, I don't want to do it. I want to go all out and go crazy. Swinging for the home run, as Gojo put it when he was talking to Megami about the difference between him and Itadori. Meanwhile, I think the main thing, the main gains issue that comes between Maki and Toji is just the potential issue here isn't that Maki is weaker than Toji, she just doesn't know how to use her body as well, which is a very interesting topic for them to explore considering the massive leap in power that Maki got here. And I'm also very, very intrigued because the other solution is just that she doesn't have as much skill as Toji. Just Toji was a better user of cursed tools and stuff like that. So now, all that's left is for Maki to evolve. But we'll probably see that sometime next week. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Make sure you hit that little notification bell so you missing out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, I do a Patreon down below. It's for as low as $1 a month to get things like exclusive videos, early content, and more. Thank you so much for watching once again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is That Guy with the Pencil, writing off.